I'm not, it's funny, like with none of these stories that I think like, oh, okay, I really want to write about like a Sami writer in Prague or about, a dissident art collector, in Jerusalem. Like I never thought about it. It was almost like I would just have like some crazy image in my mind and I would try to write toward the image and then the image wouldn't even make it into the story in the end. Like, oh, here's a woman like jumping off a rock. I wonder where she is. Why is she jumping off a rock? And then like the woman and the rock, none of it like actually like makes it into the story. But I think, oh good, you can see my dog. This is Rocky.
Aww.
Rocky. Sky.
This is so funny. Hamlet is barking at him.
It's okay. With my husband from a walk. So I think, oh, they're having a play date.
Okay, Hammy, quiet. Sorry.
And so I think that, it's a dog party. And so I think that for me, like I was I just am like such a history nerd and such a like nonfiction nerd that I was just reading all this stuff anyway and was watching these documentaries and thinking about these things anyway, that they just sort of like very naturally made their way into the story. And I just tried not to question it first draft. Like they were just things that were interesting to me. But then once I knew I wanted to write a story, then, I do a lot of research. I mean, I feel like for every story that I wrote, I just tried to read. I just wouldn't let myself finish the story until I felt like I had read everything that I could and seen every documentary and kind of went through the archives on every one of those subjects because, it just wouldn't make sense to write a book if I didn't feel like I had tried my hardest to make myself an expert. And I also just don't feel like I wouldn't want my readers to ever doubt that I was lacking in the research. And so for a lot of them, I traveled a lot. Like I've applied for a lot of grants to go to Eastern Europe, and I'm in Israel a lot anyway. And so I would do that. I would spend a lot of time in the archives. I would try to just interview as many people as I could. So like for my grandmother tells me the story, I was actually in Vilnius when I was finishing that one, but there happened to be like a woman who was a partisan expert on like the emotional state of teenage girls who were partisans. So I spent a lot of time with her, and I kind of tried to walk the sewer route and just everything that I could. But it's this weird thing where I'll do all this research, and every story took about a year at least, and I'll do all this research, and then at the end, I just want it all to go away. Like, I just want to shuck away all the research so that it just becomes all about the characters. But it's almost like in those early drafts, I need to know, I need the maps in front of me, and I need all of these, like, papers and, and all the research that I have. I need it all spread out in front of me, only for me to hopefully delete, like, 50% of it in the end.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you said that you have the maps, because I think I was reading an interview with, oh my God, what is her name? I'm just totally blanking out. Partial History of Lost Causes. Who wrote that? Jennifer.
Oh, she's such friends.
Oh, you know her?
Oh, Jennifer Dubois?
So
yeah, she's like one of my
that's
really
so
dear
funny.
friends.
So she
so
wrote.
Funny.
I think she said that for the book, she'd never actually been to Russia, and she did a lot of her research on Google Maps, just doing just like through Google Street View and just kind of trying to learn the city that she was writing about. And I was curious if you had actually traveled for your research, because there's like the stories have such as they're so cinematic. You can I really want to go to Jerusalem because of your short stories. It's like,
oh, thank you.
Yeah, it really just really felt very visual, and it was interesting the way you were talking about the way you come up with ideas, with just coming up with an image. Which I think that's so interesting, because that's sort of how they read. They're very, very visually. I mean, at least that's how they come to me, anyway.
Oh, thank you so much.
So
that is how they come. But there were certain places, like with the partisan story. I mean, that was sort of took place in a village that was, where the Jewish community was basically wiped out during World War II, and so that was a sense where I thought, it doesn't matter how much research I do, like this place doesn't exist like this world that I'm writing about doesn't exist anymore. And when I was writing that one, that was such a hard story for me to write, and I finally realized that the only way I could do it was just to honor all of the discrepancies and to honor all of the things that someone wouldn't want to talk about, and to write about it from the point of view of someone already left and knew that it didn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was probably the hardest one to work out in terms of research. And that was kind of the only way to do it, was just to draw attention to the fact that this person was no longer there when telling the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. And it felt to me, you know, part of me, as I was reading that particular story, a part of me really wanted to actually go and do more research and kind of learn more about the historical events. But then I thought, who cares? I mean, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, I was wondering, you know, where specifically did this happen? Did this thing actually exist? And then it didn't matter almost, you know.
That's interesting.
What if it didn't? You know, I don't know. It just rings true to me. So that was a quite that story is probably my favorite in retrospective as well. Those two.